I've been up here for 7.5 minutes already, and all I've done is give you 2 simple points. I don't have to drill down on them too much. But you already know what the takeaway is, yes or no? 100%. So, coming from that place, getting up here, when Scott was speaking about Michael earlier, where's Michael? Okay. You mentioned a word that's really key. And I heard a lot of different things on the feedback, and something was great. Again, the vulnerability and the authenticity was what blew me away on that, regardless of the different points on being able to improve or give feedback on. But one thing that you mentioned was you mentioned the word certainty. When you get up here, when you start being able to deliver speeches in front of bigger and bigger and bigger audiences, and I don't know what the biggest audiences I've got up and spoke in front of, but it's several thousand, then if you come from a place of uncertainty, which standing in that box earlier I was telling you about, how can I feel good enough, or how can I get the audience to like me, that will take you down like a stone. Get out of there. But if you come from a place of how can I add value, your sense of certainty about what it is that you want to deliver to these people goes up 1,000%. So if you work on your certainty, not your content, you will change everything in your ability to speak. Does that make sense? You work on your level of presence, not your joke lines. And I guarantee things will flow through you in a way that you think, wow, I couldn't have made that up. Anybody here just had that experience where you had to perform, where you had to get up and say something within 30 seconds? Okay? And you had no clue what to say, but you got up and you came from a place of certainty. Wow, it just flowed. I mean, guys know what I'm talking about when they meet girls at the bar they're not expecting, right? Right? And you're either on or you're not. And if you have a level of uncertainty, right, it's game over. You come from a place of strength, from a place of certainty. Women, you can feel it in a heartbeat, yes? Yeah, exactly what I'm talking about this day. Yeah. Right? So, yeah, that is a whole different level of focus. And that's really what I want to share with you tonight. Another, if you want to get into strategies and you want to get into drill down, all that kind of, it'll come. But it has to come from you. It has to come from being natural. You try somebody else's style, forget it. Yeah, so I remember somebody came up to me one time after a talk and they said, wow, I want to be a speaker just like you. I said, I know that's complimentary intent, but here's what I'd rather encourage you to look at. Why don't you become the best you can be, and then everything else will take care of itself. But while you try and become me, you're never going to be you. And while you're you, or while you're not being you, how can you ever connect to somebody from being a place of authenticity and being genuine? Yeah. Subtle distinction. I think we had earlier, was it Chris, who was saying about become the best you can be, right, in relationships? Become the person you want to listen to. That doesn't include trying to step into somebody else's and model them through their level of identity. Oh, I've got to copy down what worked for him. That was a great joke line, let me write. Yeah. Authenticity at that level is what you can connect to move people emotionally. Now, if you want to get into a little bit of technique, one of the things that I would tell you is the most powerful way for moving people emotionally is stories. You tell stories, and all of a sudden you have the opportunity to enroll people and engage them and take them on a journey that it may be about you in terms of experience, but it's not about you, if you know what I mean. It's not about coming from ego. It's not about coming from, hey, check me out, this is my story. Right? It's all about me, because the intent there is, again, coming from which part? How can I feel good enough? How can I prove myself? But if you can enroll people on a story, and personal stories are great, but if you haven't got personal experience, you can always borrow somebody else's story. And there's very easy techniques of being able to tell that in the third person so that you can still tell the story for somebody else and get the same reaction. But stories are great, and you should always start building up some stories that make critical points, because they're a great way of being able to move people. And I'm going to share a quick story with you to give you an example, which I think may be relevant tonight. One of the biggest things or challenges with public speaking, as I said earlier, is most people, when they step into that spotlight, the first thing they're worried about is, what does everybody else think? Oh my God, insecurity, am I good enough? They start going through emotions of embarrassment or overwhelm, confusion, want to run away. Yeah, all been there? 100%. So by getting involved in, by being able to enroll people in stories and engaging at that level, you can almost have a conversation. But then it's not about you. So being able to get through that level of fear, being able to get through that initial level, pull the curtain back and step up and just, here I am. Okay? it is a little bit about getting familiar with taking risks. So I want to share a story with you about risk taking. How many people here consider themselves as risk takers, by the way? Okay. Any girls? Oh, change it? Yeah? Why? Yeah, even our association with the word risk sometimes is like, oh my God, yeah, well, what does that mean? Well, how many people here have ever jumped out of a perfectly good aeroplane? Okay, 3 of you, 3 crazy people.
Bungee jump.
Sorry?
Bungee jump.
Bungee jump, just as good.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to share a story with you about my first ever skydive, because I think it's pretty relevant to what it is we're trying to achieve here. And you guys will probably tune into this a little bit. But I've always wanted to skydive since I was this big. When my mum caught me jumping out of my local apple tree with an umbrella. And at that point, it was done. And I thought I was going to go into the military and airborne, but that never happened. So I always had this level of longing that, I want to go and jump out of an airplane. I want to skydive. So 7 years ago, I got to a point where I thought, I can't wait any longer. I'm just going to make it happen. So I thought, I can't jump in England because cloud base is usually 3,000 feet and you never really get, you drive to the airport, you sit on your backside for 3 days waiting for cloud cover to clear. So Florida had some of the best jumping conditions in the world. So I booked a week out of my life. I said, I'm going to go to Florida, I'm going to do whatever it takes for a whole week, I'm going to become a licensed skydiver, let's go have some fun. Now one of the challenges that happened was I prejudged what has to happen in skydiving. I'm like, well come on guys, it can't be that difficult. You jump out of an aeroplane, you pull a cord, gravity doesn't work, right? A little more than that. Little people like saying, well, you get on stage, you just talk about what you talk about, and 2,000 people jump up and clap. Easy, right? A little more to it than that. Or what I did, I got there and I did 8 hours of ground training before they let me even look at an aeroplane. I had to learn everything about my equipment, what it did, how it works, what to do if it goes wrong, everything about plane exit entry procedures, aerodynamics, hand signals in the air, wind patterns. It was just, anyone here seen The Matrix? Right? Well, it was like, someone had plugged one of these things in and downloaded, a year's worth of skydiver information. Right? But instead of professional skydiver, they got the wrong program. It was like crazy confused idiot. And at that point, it was just, I was so overwhelmed. And some of the things here that you need to, I would invite you to look at, is that when you get a lot of information, the emotional route tends to take you down this road. You become overwhelmed, which leads to confusion, which leads to inaction. So if you're learning anything, whether it's a new sport, a new hobby, so you're preparing a speech, or you're getting the second you become overwhelmed, that will lead to confusion, which will lead to inaction. So here I was with 8 hours of brain fry, and I thought, well, it's nearly the end of the night, and I just need to settle down for the evening, go over all this stuff, and tomorrow morning I'll feel a little less confused, a little more certain. At that point, the instructor comes bounding into the room. He says, hey Pete, guess what? There's 1 slot left on the sunset load. The last jump of the day, we're on it! Great. And I started to feel this wasn't quite what I was planning. And I've had 8 hours of brain fry, and it's not very often you tend to learn something that your life depends upon remembering. This was one of those times. So anyway, I smile, I start putting on my jumpsuit, I get my rig on. And we go out to the airplane. There's 30 other skydivers on this airplane, plus one other guy who's it's his first jump as well. Now on your first jump, those that haven't jumped, and did you guys do tandem?